So for Senator Weickowski, our first speaker will be Senator Skinner.
I'm one of those never gotten COVID yet, but I'm taking the mask off because part of my tribute's going to need to have the mask off. But and hopefully none of you will give me COVID today. Anyway, this is going to be a hard act to follow. I mean, Senator, our good friend from Fremont's performance for our good colleague from Riverside was, anyway, hard act. Maybe Senator Weickowski asked me to pay this tribute because we're both Cal Bears. But I think actually it's because, like most Cal Bears, we're both a bit rebellious and mischievous, especially Weickowski. Now, after Cal, he moved to Washington, D.C. He worked for Congressman Don Edwards for 5 years, and he went to law school. He became a bankruptcy lawyer, bankruptcy attorney. He also served on the city council in Fremont and as vice mayor of Fremont, and then he joined us. And before I talk a little bit more about how he joined us, I don't know whether this has ever occurred to you or whether you've ever either read Winnie the Pooh or seen the Disney movie about Winnie the Pooh, but our good colleague from Fremont has always reminded me a bit of Tigger, that character. So allow me to sing the wonderful thing about Tiggers, except it's the wonderful thing about Weickowskis. The wonderful thing about Weickowskis is Weickowskis are wonderful things. His top is made out of ADUs, his bottoms are made out of zing. He's bouncy, trouncy, flouncy, pouncy, fun, 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 fun. But the wonderful thing about Weickowskis is Bob's the only one. The wonderful thing about Weickowskis is Weickowskis are marvelous chaps. They have lots of ideas about climate change. Ignore them and the world will collapse. They're jumpy, bumpy, clumpy, thumpy, fun, 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 fun. But the wonderful thing about Weickowskis is Bob's the only one. Weickowskis are cuddly fellows. Weickowskis are awfully sweet. Everyone else is jealous. That's why Bob repeats and repeats and repeats. The wonderful thing about Weickowskis is Weickowskis are wonderful things. They'll talk all night about wildfires, and by mornings your ears will still ring. They're bouncy, trouncy, flouncy, pouncy, fun, 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 fun. But the wonderful thing about Weickowskis is Bob's the only one. The wonderful thing about Weickowskis are wonderful things. They wear their father's 40-year-old sweaters because they're so committed to recycling. They're jumpy, bumpy, clumpy, thumpy, fun, 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 fun. The most wonderful thing about Weickowskis is Bob's the only one. Oh, the wonderful thing about Weickowskis is Weickowskis are wonderful things. They'll tirelessly defend small businesses, and their budget asks include plenty of bling. They're jumpy, bumpy, clumpy, thumpy, fun, 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 fun. But the wonderful thing about Weickowskis is Bob's the only one. Now, just a little bit more. So, okay. You know, while we heard the other night in the tribute that Bob finally married Sue Lemke, his long-term partner, but his assembly member seatmate, Tom Amiano, also described their relationship as a bromance. And our former colleague, Mr. Amiano, wanted me to make sure to remind you about Bob's purple raincoat and that the highlight of Bob's year is his annual performance in the Nutcracker every December. Did you know that? Now, I hope someone else will talk about Bob's lively and large Polish Catholic family and all the things he loves about Polish culture, because I'm not going to go there. But let me just say, seriously, Bob's work on ADUs is some of the single strongest work this legislature has done to address the housing crisis. And the number of units that his work, the number of housing units it has added to California is remarkable and phenomenal. Bob is also a formidable champion for consumers and our low-income residents, fighting against abusive debt collectors, for which he has received numerous awards. And all of us know that if we had followed Bob's lead on addressing the climate crisis and adaptation, we would be much farther today. But Bob brought wonderful energy to all of our proceedings, and he will be truly missed. We love you, Bob.
Our second speaker, I don't know if he's going to sing. Well, maybe. Senator Hertzberg.
I can rap, and I might do it today, but I don't think I can beat the Nancy way. She put a lot of time in, and she did great things, and I'm not going to try to top it. I'm going to get some serious, and there's going to be no singing here. So let me just tell you this. I love Bob Weickowski. As you saw today, he's fun. He's brilliant. He's been my seatmate, and I am jealous because I, too, have had a bromance with him. I'm calling Amiano after the session's over, back basically the entire time. And just in case you didn't know, everybody, members of the Senate, Bob Weickowski is Polish. I learned more about Poland than I could imagine from Brother Weickowski. Whether it's traveling with him to Katowice, because I never knew how to pronounce that, watched him eat all that funny stuff that he ate there, speaking Polish to all the people. He lived in Poland for a long time when we went for COP24, which was a great time. Whether the bachelor party we threw at my place, and I had to have Polish flags, Polish sausage, which I didn't eat any, and I didn't know there was such a thing as Polish vodka, potato vodka, and I got a ton of that stuff. But it was a heck of a party, and we had a good time. And Sue, we didn't do anything bad. You know, after graduating Berkeley, as I think most people know, he went to work in Congress for Don Edwards for some period of time, served as mayor and council member vice mayor and as a council member in Fremont. And certainly, as what Senator Skinner talked about, ADUs, I think I have over 10,000 ADUs in the communities that I represent. It has been nothing less than extraordinary. Dennis Cardoza tried to do that 20-some years ago and wasn't successful, and you've done a magnificent job. I completely agree. And I wanted to just express what Senator Umberg would say if he stood up and talked about what an unbelievable courage you have on a 39-to-1 vote to vote against the body. It wasn't Korematsu in terms of what happened back during World War II. There was a vote where you were the lone dissenter on a vote where a senator had a measure dealing with disabled vets and puppies, and you voted against that because you didn't like it. It was waiving the adoption fee, and you thought it didn't make sense. Courage he has. We all know, certainly I don't need to talk any further than what Senator Skinner talked about with respect to climate change issues, adaptation, and the tremendous contribution that you've made. But the thing I want to talk about is one thing. Bob is a bankruptcy lawyer. And let me tell you what that means to be a bankruptcy lawyer. It means somebody is in distress. They're not coming to you because they got a bill they can't pay. They're coming to you because they've got 2 years of bills they can't pay, and they can't sleep at night. They had a bunch of bills because they had a horrible tragedy in their family, and they can't pay the medical bills. They saved their whole life to start a business, and all of a sudden, it went bankrupt because it didn't make ends meet. You know what it's like to be a lawyer, to sit across from the desk from somebody? They're not there for the first day when the bill happened. They're there when there's so many bills and they're piled so high and you're in complete distress. Your life is falling apart. You don't know what to do. The last thing you want to do is to file bankruptcy because you think you're a failure, whether it's in one form or another because of family or whatever. Bob is a bankruptcy lawyer. What that brings to this chamber, and what we saw in the legislation that he introduced and passed and lost and passed and lost, and we kept trying on all of these issues on homesteads. What was that about? Because when people saw it across their desk, they lost their homes. When people got harassed to the death by bill collectors, he saw in the faces of his clients what that was like. And he brought that experience and that energy. All of us try to protect people in one form or another from our experiences, to protect people in various ways, whether it's a worker for salaries or working conditions or whatever. But there is a unique experience, and you've heard him talk about it a lot. But I'm telling you, as a bankruptcy lawyer, the level of compassion and experience and understanding, and it was often hard for him on some of his bills, and lots of times it didn't pass for people to understand how the bankruptcy laws work. But it is who he is. It is in his soul. It is what he is about. And it's what I love about this guy, and why I helped him on so many bills, and why we work so hard on some of this stuff. Because I don't have any level of experience, but had some understanding of it by virtue of my prior experience in being in this place. So I want to talk about that and what he brings to this institution. And it was hard to understand. And lots of the bankers and a lot of the big interest groups didn't like some of the stuff that he did. But he did the right thing. And he did it for the right reasons. An extraordinary person. I love this guy. My seatmate. If anybody took a bunch of votes when I was here the first couple of years, because I'd lean over and say, what is this bill about? And he would tell me and I'd vote. And he probably, whatever it was, but I shouldn't talk about that, but I did it. but just an extraordinary talent, extraordinary human being that made just a wonderful contribution to this body. We love you. Thank you, Weickowski.
All right. Tigger, Senator Weickowski.
Thank you for the kind words. My colleagues from Berkeley and Van Nuys, and the friendships that I've had with you and each of you in this chamber. A lot has changed in the 12 years since I first got elected with the pro tem and Dr. and Mr. Hueso and Brian Jones and Shannon. There's about a half a dozen of us that got elected. Bradford, that's right. We got elected in 2010 to come up here. It was a big recession. Bob was right. I was a bankruptcy attorney. Everything was going to hell, and they said, oh yeah, why don't you run? Right? It's a good idea. And I guess I would say, after my friend from Van Nuys speaks, it was really hard work to try to get people to understand the turmoil that folks are going through and put it into legislation as a freshman. You're here, and one of the first bills I did on municipal bankruptcy and pre-clearance to get in, and everybody on both chambers was like, what? Their face went blank saying, what are you talking about? Why are we doing this? And it teaches you the hard knocks of life and how important this is to get into the details and to express to folks why this is going to help out cities, why this is going to help out different interest groups that work for cities and work with the cities. It's been my pleasure, and I've been fortunate enough to have a measure of success with legislation that nobody understands what it does, but I've been able to get 21 votes. I want to thank all my colleagues over the years who served with me on the Judiciary Committee and the Budget Committee. They've helped support these efforts where a lot of this legislation has come in. I think I've said since I got here, our two biggest challenges are income inequality and climate change. And those are the defining issues that we face at this time. And getting to work on those issues over the last 12 years has been an honor for me. I want to thank former Speaker John Perez having the good faith in me and being supportive. He made me chair of ESTM when I first arrived in the Assembly, and then the chair of Judiciary. I got to work intimately on these measures on toxic materials. Nobody else wants to touch that. My first pro tem, Kevin De Leon, put me on EQ, continuing that, and budget sub 2. The pro tem has continued to allow me to serve on sub 2 and do the work that I like to do. Coincidentally, if anybody's wondering, today's August 17th. It is the cap and trade auction that's going on at this time with our friends from Quebec. We're hoping that the allowance level crests $35 a metric ton, but that's another thing. A lot of work needs to be done on climate change. I leave that in your hands. I want to thank Senator Nielsen, Senator Jones, and Senator Dolly, who served with me on sub 2, your input on each round of the budget when we try to provide a Senate climate package or a Senate budget. You guys were instrumental in all those hearings that drove people crazy. But Majority Leader McGuire, there you are, and Senator Stern, I want to thank you gentlemen who served on me. You're instrumental in shaping the state's budget as I go back and forth and ask you questions and get your input. None of this important work, whether it's wildfire prevention, drought relief, climate adaptation, electric vehicles, and a whole host of other issues would never happen, as other members have said, without the tremendous work of staff. Joanne Roy, James Hacker, Anita Lee, wherever you are, thank you for what you've done. Like many parting members, Sue is a saint. Those of you got to meet her before or got to meet her on Monday. I mean, she said yes when I asked her to marry her. So that says something. Evan and Luke, the stepsons, thank you very much for being and helping me. Many members have spoken about the importance of staff. I'd like to say I've done it all on my own. No, just kidding. I didn't need them, you know. They're overrated. Up in the gallery, we have Heather Resiteris, my chief, April Bird, Jeff Barboza, Grace Leakley, Lauren Rabovovich, Carlos Puentes, Rocky Fernandez, Andre Macapinlak, Tim Orozco, Miriam Brosman, and Brett Haley, as well as my former chief, Derek Chernal and Sean Manalo, were all instrumental. Many of them have been with me at my side as much as they could stay on my side. Now, I'm a pretty fast walker, so when they're at my side, they have to keep up with me. I'm a product of the 10th Senate District. You know, I was born in San Francisco, but I was raised in Fremont, went to school in Fremont, went to law school at Santa Clara, which is part of the Senate District. And just like California's face, the 10th Senate District is changing. I have the largest API population, I believe, in all the new redistricting. I will be replaced by an API woman. That's a good thing. I mean, I'm glad that I got to make a contribution, but the next generation, the next batch of senators that come here are going to make their contribution. They'll have different challenges. They have, well, maybe the same challenges, but different ways of approaching problem solving. You know, it's hard to reflect on myself. I'm not really good about that. I can reflect on you guys and talk about you guys, especially in committee. It's a wonderful experience. As my two friends have said, I do things a certain Weickowski way. I like the serious work that we do. It's really important. I like to take a lighthearted approach on some of the stuff to make a point, but also to make it a little bit of fun. So thank you very much. I'm going to miss this place. I want to thank each and every one of you who have mentored me and helped me and giving me some energy and some direction. I hope I've reciprocated in a small world way. You've made me very proud to serve with each and every one of you, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart.